People are motivated by different things when it comes to their career paths. Some people are motivated by safety, others are motivated by status. However, if you are someone that wants to grow on a deeper level whilst pursuing your calling in this existence, then a soul-led career will probably be for you. And in this video, I want to explain the 3 pillars of a soul-led career and exactly what that means. Now, my name is Joe Yuli. I'm a philosopher. I am absolutely obsessed with vocations and callings and knowing our paths, and that's why I educate people. Here on places like YouTube, Substack, Instagram, I host a podcast called the Career Archetypes Podcast, and I show people how to choose the right career path with conviction by unearthing their very own career archetype in our Unearthed membership. And the reason for this is because I believe that everybody has a unique calling in this lifetime, and that if you don't pursue that calling, you end up regretting it later on in life. But if you do pursue that calling, you end up spending the majority of your adult life doing the work that you're deeply meant for and that you're deeply feeling called to do. And one of the ways in which to organize your path so that you make sure you are pursuing your calling is what I call a soul-led career. Now, this idea of a soul-led career immediately presents you with what is leading this vocation and the direction that it's going in, which is the soul. Now, the way that I talk about the soul is it's the divine part of yourself, the part of yourself that we might say still lives on after death. It's the part of yourself that is your true nature, your essence. We can think about it symbolically as the sun, the giver of life. And this is the part of you that energizes you at your core. And so when you are in alignment with your calling, you feel deeply fulfilled because you know that you're doing the work that you're meant to be doing. And so a soul-led career means putting that part of yourself first, putting your soul first, and also viewing your career path through this lens of your divine nature and your true being as the most important facet, your soul's development as the most important piece. Now, this is why it's the very first pillar. Now, I'm going to mention 3 of the main pillars of a soul-led career. And so the very first one is soul, making sure that this is a core pillar in your career and it is the most important piece of your career. Now, you might be thinking at this point in time, no one else really puts their soul first when it comes to their vocation. People are very much motivated by so many different areas of life. I mentioned previously, some people are motivated by safety, some people are motivated by status, other people are motivated by purely just money or power or relationships with others or being more social, being well known. Fame is one. We can say that many people are fame-led when it comes to their career. And because of this, they view their path through this lens of motivation. Now, some people aren't even aware that they're being led by these particular motivations. People that are unable to leave, say, for example, a job that they feel is soul-sucking and decaying them and eating them out from the inside, are often being led by safety because they can't leave, because if they do leave, then they'll end up losing that sense of safety. So their entire vocation up until that point has been one that has been safety-led. They've walked a safety-led career. If we have people or look at people that are on social media that are attempting to grow a massive amount of followings, right? They just want followers. They just want people to look at their pictures, to like them, to comment. They are always talking or seeking engagement. We can say that they're walking a fame-led career, meaning that they're always viewing things through this sense of attention. Who's going to look at me? Who's going to give me some sort of validation that this is correct? And it's very, very hungry for that type of area. Now, a soul-led career is one that always looks at developing your own soul, which is this inner part of you that, without being in connection to, means that you end up losing yourself to the world. It means that you are more subject to different trends that come through. It means that you might suddenly be walking a path that you find out later on it's a temptation path because you're not deeply in tune with your own soul's desire. And this sense of getting in touch with your soul's desire requires a level of deep introspective work. You have to be deeply in tune with yourself to be aware of what it is that you actually truly want on that level, which is why when I end up helping people to unearth their very own career archetype, which is a way of understanding what your soul's desire is, the first thing required is a sense of deep awareness around the entirety of your being, because there are areas that you know about yourself where you're like, oh yeah, that's me. I'm super into, cars from the 1960s, and that very much resonates with me. But then there might be other areas of yourself that you aren't aware of, not knowing that you have certain interests and tastes that you're being constantly drawn towards, but you're not consciously aware of. One of the interesting questions that I will often ask people when I'm looking at understanding more about who it is that they are, if someone's going through this process of unearthing, one of the interesting questions that might even seem super trivial to people that are unaware of the deeper layers, which is, who's your favorite movie character and what is their personality makeup? And so the reason I ask this question is because oftentimes our favorite movie character is someone that we're drawn to because we have facets of them in us. There are parts of their story that is in our story. And by becoming aware of their story, we start to become aware of our own story. And by becoming aware of our own story, we end up sensing more of what our soul's desire is trying to tell us. And so you'll often find that, say, for example, someone that needs to be more adventurous in their path, that are getting drawn to adventurous characters, that their life actually isn't very adventurous. And so there is this deeper yearning for more of an experience and more of an exploration outside of the confines that they find themselves in currently. And it's only by going outside of those confines and adventuring and becoming more like the character that they start to see that, hey, that is actually more a part of me, and it's a part of me that has gone unnurtured and is unfed, and I need to start to look at this side of myself and bring it forth. And so there's a lot of this type of work when it comes to first understanding what your soul's desire is in this process of knowing, and the process that I mentioned, which is the unearthing of your very own career archetype. And by getting in tune with what your soul actually desires, you can take it from the bottom, right? The meaning that it's typically way outside of our attention, and we've normally put other things in front of it that are leading the charge, that are telling us what our career is meant to be about, and bringing it to the top and saying, not only am I going to be consciously aware of what my soul desires, what my calling actually is in this life, but I am also going to let it lead. It's going to lead all the different decisions. It's going to lead all the different perspectives. It's going to help me to shape and transform myself as I start to walk this path, right? It's a very different type of question when you start to look at different career decisions, when you are bringing your soul as the person, as the energy that is leading the charge. Say, for example, you start to think to yourself, oh, I'm going to start a podcast, and I think that starting a podcast is going to help me on my vocation. Rather than saying that from this place of hearing it from some random person on social media who says, like, everyone needs to start a podcast, and you hear these kinds of people, then they'll just like bring out these absolute laws as to what everyone should do. Everyone should start a podcast, and you hear that, and you think to yourself, okay, maybe I should start a podcast because all these different experts are telling me I need to start a podcast, and if I don't start a podcast, then I'm going to be behind, or I'm going to miss out on the biggest opportunity of this year. Right? It's very, very dramatic. And you're not in tune with your soul, then you might start doing that podcast. Now, it might be right, it might not be right. You don't really know, right? It's very hard to tell. If you're doing this from the perspective of maybe like fame, then maybe it is correct. Maybe if you're walking a fame-led career, then that's right for you. But if you're walking a soul-led career, it means that you have to tune into your soul, tune into your true identity, your true nature, and say, is this actually what I'm meant to be pursuing, right? Based on my career archetype, let's say that you had the career archetype of an oracle. As the career archetype of an oracle, am I really meant to be doing this podcast? Does it make sense? And maybe it does make sense because you want to share particular insights and foresights through this medium. But maybe it doesn't make sense. Maybe the way in which it needs to be expressed is in more of a communal setting that's in person so that people can feel it rather than simply listening to it through Spotify. And so this is the type of decision changes that occur when the soul is leading the charge and as a core pillar. And the interesting but also tragic thing that has happened in not only the modern world, but it has happened for some time, is that when people are pursuing their paths, they will often have many other areas that are leading them, that are pulling them, that are motivating them. And yet the soul often gets neglected. It gets pushed away. It gets worked in after hours. Right? Many people do their own personal spiritual work or their own personal connecting to self, even we can say, morning journaling or meditation. They'll do this stuff in the morning. They'll do it after work. They'll do it at lunch times. They'll do it on the weekends. They're always fitting it around work as opposed to doing it within the work itself. And my sort of argument for a rearrangement of this type of organization is that your soul's development deserves priority. And not only that, but you need lots of time to truly develop that part of yourself. And if you're spending the majority of your adult life doing work that doesn't have any soul in it, it means that your soul is being unnurtured, right? It's being neglected because your focus is elsewhere. And there's always a way to intertwine it into the very work that you're actually doing. And like I said, it can not only be intertwined, but it can lead you. And it will instinctually lead you towards your own development in such a way where you're able to reach your exalted form and this higher state of being. We call it in the modern world fulfilling your potential, but really it's the true encapsulating of who it is that you're meant to be in this existence. And so this is the very first pillar. It's soul. And making sure that that is in your career as you walk it will allow you to not fall for stupid temptation paths, or make sure that you're not veering towards different motivations that the true you, your true nature, wants you to move towards, right? And you don't get caught up in these superficial games that really aren't meant for you. And you stay connected to the deepest parts of yourself whilst walking your path. Now, the second pillar is money. So when it comes to a soul-led career, it doesn't mean that we just reject finances and money. And this is something that often happens, especially with people that are spiritually inclined. They have a relationship with money that is often one that they see it as something completely negative. They see it as something that is corrupt. And there's good reason for that as well. One of the main reasons is because many organizations are very over the top in terms of profit hunger, right? They want too much whilst not giving back enough. And there's this distortion and this imbalance that is going on. And people sense that. And so they sense that because of that corruption and because of that greed and because of that imbalance in these structures, that they don't want to be associated with that. And they see that money is connected and intertwined with these organizations as one of the main reasons as to why this is happening. So they want to distance themselves from it. Because they want to distance themselves from it, they end up rejecting finances. And yet we need finances in order to support ourselves. We need finances in order to thrive in the modern world, right? There might be different modes of support, such as, there's this idea that's getting increasing momentum over the past 5 years, which is universal basic income, which is this idea that we will get income from some sort of government organization that will allow us to satisfy base level needs. But there's no sort of impending economic restructuring that is going to happen in the very, very short term, meaning that we need to still be able to finance our lives in order to go on surviving and also thriving, being able to, make sure that we have clothes, a house, or a roof over our head, be able to pay the bills, but also just explore and experience life. And so finances and money is the second pillar of a soul-led career, which means that the soul pillar needs to meet and agree with the money pillar. Now, you'll notice that it's soul-led, which means that the soul is always going to be at the forefront. When it comes to a decision, the money-led side of ourselves doesn't get first say. It gets a say, right? It's sitting at the table, but it's not leading the conversation. It's not telling us, hey, make this decision because you get paid more. Hey, make this decision because you need to ensure that you're able to pay the rent. It's not telling us that and not instructing us to do that, because we first have to go to the soul part of us. And by cultivating a healthy relationship with money that allows you to do more of the soul work, right? That's what money can ultimately help you to do. For example, if you're someone that's a healer that is pursuing healing and maybe it's an alternative domain, having access to money and finances will allow you to do more of that, to help more people, to expand your knowledge in more different ways and more different arenas, to potentially be able to help more people that can learn your skill set, and then they can go and help other people. And so by bringing in finances, you can go ahead and serve even more and have more of an impact. And so just recognizing that this is the way that our society currently works in the 21st century. It might change, but at this current point in time, it's going to require you to have money in order to do your work. And so you need to build a healthy relationship with money so that it can continue to serve your path and allow you to walk that path. And once again, it doesn't mean that it's the priority, but it means it's a priority, meaning soul comes first, but the second pillar is money, and you don't reject money, right? It's not something that you want to say, I don't care about money, because if you didn't care about money, then you could probably just quit your job and maybe just give all your money out to all the people that are around you. There is a care factor there. And the care factor is because you need to survive. And so you want to figure out a way in order to bring that into the soul. But that's why that is a second pillar. And the third pillar of a soul-led career is lifestyle. Now, I see this a lot where people will pursue their soul's calling, amazing. They will figure out a way to make sure that it is aligned with being able to support themselves, amazing again. But then they're living a lifestyle that doesn't allow them to explore and taste and really just be a part of life, right? They become very much this sort of isolated being that never checks in with anyone, that never wants to go outside of their own sort of insular room, and they're just very much closed in, and they become very, very obsessive to the point where it gets to that dark place where they've lost touch with any other sphere of life outside of the very one that they're zoomed in on. And so if you don't have lifestyle as a part of your soul-led career, this can happen, meaning that there's probably going to be other people in your life, different relationships, a wife, a husband, a girlfriend, a boyfriend, children, family members, different friends. And you want to make sure that you have the structure of your career path built in such a way that allows you to still live, to still be able to go and explore domains of life outside of work. Now, you might be hearing this and thinking, all I talk about is vocations and career paths, but there are other facets of life, right? There are different places to look into, to gain perspective from, places that will enrich your life. And by making sure that you do have a structure that will allow for that, allows you to have all these three components: the soul, the money, and the lifestyle. And having all three, in my opinion, makes a soul-led career. And that's how it is a very, very solid structure that allows you to feel a deep level of fulfillment from all these different areas. Now, the most common pursuit of a path looks like people putting money first, when we can sort of use a synonym there with money and survival, right? So they put money or survival first. The other one is that they can put lifestyle second, and then they try to get to the soul part later, right? So they're pursuing money to make sure that they are able to pay their mortgage or pay their rent. They're pursuing lifestyle, so they're able to go overseas for 1 week every 3 months. And they're pursuing these two pillars And then they're thinking to themselves, well, at some point, I'm going to get to the actual real work. At some point, I'm going to do the thing that I'm meant for. At some point, I'm going to transition into it. But if it's organized in that way, it becomes really, really difficult to get to the soul part, because there's always something on. Your attention and your energy is always on the work that you have to do during the week. And then you've got different things that you want to enjoy yourself doing on the weekends or after work, because that's the lifestyle component. And so the reason that we organize it with soul first is to make sure that you don't miss out on that, because that, like I mentioned in the beginning, is the real tragedy, where people never know what their calling is, or they never even pursue their calling if they do know. And then they end up living a life later on that they end up looking back on and being like, damn, I should have gone for it. I should have went for it. If only, right? If only. If only I didn't go ahead and pursue this type of structure and this kind of path early on, then maybe I could have eventually done the thing that I was meant to be doing in this lifetime. And so I don't want you to be one of these people that looks back and regrets it and resents it. And so if you are looking at your career path right now and trying to choose, you want to put the soul first. It needs to be the first thing that you figure out. You need to know what your calling is. You need to know what your purpose is first. Right? You need that understanding, that level of awareness. And then you want to look at the other two pillars of how can I make money from it, and how do I live in such a way that I actually really enjoy living doing this. Because if you don't, then you end up in one of these places where you do end up regretting it. So don't do what other people do, which is skip that, right? Because it's hard, or because everyone else that they see around them looks as though they're moving forward faster, right? They start looking at their friends from high school, and that person's doing well, or that person has a business, or that person is becoming famous. Who cares, right? They're doing what they want to do, maybe. Maybe they're on a temptation path. But you need to tap into what it is that you're meant for and why it is that you're here. And then from that foundation, you can start building on top of it these areas of, okay, now that I know exactly what it is that I want to be doing, how do I allow this to support me financially? How do I allow this to exist within a lifestyle of my choosing and by my own design? And so if you're interested in learning more about how to tap into your very own career archetype, to unearth it through our process, then I would invite you to check out our Unearth membership. In there, I walk people through this process that goes through many different perspectives around who it is that you are at your core. And by going through that process, you'll get to know what your path is. You'll get to know it in the defined structure that it should exist. And you'll also be able to map out the clear steps as to how to actually get there. And students that do this end up leaving with the name of their career archetype, as well as a deep inner conviction that this is the right path for them. And so if you're interested in checking that out, I'll leave a link below, and I'll see you in the next one.